Stop asking and start executing. This was the short advice from Gary Vee on a recent episode of the Gary Vee Audio Experience, which is a podcast that he does daily. And it's advice that in many ways I've already been adhering to, but it was just nice to be reminded of it, especially in such a succinct manner. Because when I look at the landscape of, Hollywood and just entertainment in general, and that, I mean that all encompassingly of, let's say, poets, musicians, filmmakers, writers, hosts, you name it, right? Even like entrepreneurial stuff, right? It's this idea that we're always trying to go to somebody and have this wishful idea of like, if I get an agent or if, I get this money to make my movie, or, I get this publisher, or I get this PR person. Like, we're always kind of asking and waiting for something to come to us in order to move forward with something. And, listen, we all need resources, meaning both tools and people and certainly money to be able to, really do what we need to do. But that doesn't mean that there isn't a version of what you truly want to be doing that you couldn't do right here today. Especially if you're creative, there's a way forward. And of course, that comes down to being honest with yourself of like, what are you truly after? Do you really love that art form? Whatever it is, singing, writing poems, interviewing people, like whatever it is. Or do you just want the end result of the fame and the glory and the money, right? Because if it's the former, then there is a path forward, right? And we all have to start somewhere. One of the big things I often talk about with people, they always say like who they want to be, right? Let's say I want to be the next Ryan Seacrest, or I want to be the next Beyonce, whatever it is. And I say, okay, well, study their careers and see where they started off at, And of course, things change, right, over time. So it's not going to be, exactly as they did. But like, what is the spirit of how they got to where they were? Because we all start off somewhere, right? And we all have to, progress in our journeys to get to that pinnacle of where we want to be. I mean, on Netflix, there's a Taylor Swift documentary that documents her, going back when she was like 13, she was writing, 150 songs a year or something like that. I might not, might not have it fully correct, but that's essentially a big chunk of it, right? And so, yeah, how do you you have to figure that out for yourself of how can I move things along with what I currently have to the best of my abilities that I'm able to. And that's what attracts the attention, right? That's what gets people to start noticing. And now you're not having to ask because you're executing. So you're showcasing to people, this is what I'm capable of. Now they're asking you of like, okay, hey, we'd like to hire you, or, hey, what else you got? We'd love to fund this, or, blah, blah, blah. It's a lot easier to get things, right? I mean, Shark Tank is another wonderful example of this. That's a show I'm sure you're familiar with, but entrepreneurs in various stages go there and pitch ideas to the shark to try to get an investment. And the ones generally that tend to be a little bit further along and have things figured out, even if they're not making like, $1 million in revenue, but they've got the foundation of all in place, the patents, the this, the that. It shows something tangible to the sharks, and they're like, okay, I can get behind this person because they're executing, right? So that, to me, really what it means to, stop asking and start executing. It's to let go of the excuses and to find your path forward through that no matter what. In my own life, just as an example, I'm working on my third feature film, and this, the first one was hard at the time because I'd never made a feature film on my own. And the goal was, regardless of the quality, just to make a feature film for low budget, because that's all I had. I didn't want to overspend what essentially was a training exercise. I don't want to diminish it in that way, but that was the overall intent of like, hey, let's literally just make a movie and see how it comes out, what comes of it, and go and learn, right? And therefore, we're going to essentially refuse to spend a lot of money. Then with my second movie, I wanted to elevate, and elevate we did. I mean, we elevated exponentially. We went to a different country in Colombia to film this. This was over COVID, so that was a whole thing and whatever else, but we managed to do it, and I progressed as an artist. And now I'm, taking all those experiences and essentially going even like 10x or possibly even more, where I want to make an animated feature film, and that's what I'm going after. And but like for me, with each of the movies, it was always, this mental shift. It wasn't about, am I going to do this? It was about, okay, I've now committed that I'm going to do this. How am I going to do it, right? And so, this next film, it's really involved. There's a lot of steps, and I will need, it's beyond just my own willpower, as kind of generally has been in the past, to move these things forward. But within that, how do I get that train started? Even if I'm literally the one with the rope and pulling it, how can I get momentum for this thing? So that way people see this thing and they're like, oh, okay, yeah, I want to be part of this, right? That's the phase I'm at, and I gladly accept that phase. And, 2024, I'm excited because we're on to the next milestone of things, and that's really, really exciting. But it starts with, again, I'm not asking, I'm executing. And so I want that for you. Start executing whatever it is, whatever you've been holding off on. And to that effect, listen, sometimes one of my other things is we might have to downsize in a few things, right? Like, yes, I'm very ambitious, and there's a ton of projects that I would love to do. But I jot them down and keep them for when I'm done with these things, so that way I can go from one project to the next, because I know how involved these things are. And, one of the things that does happen and prevents execution is just this overwhelm of like, okay, I've got this idea that I want to do, I got this idea, and all of a sudden you're expending yourself by running around and all these things, but you've not moved an inch in any one of them, and so then none of it gets done. Right? So I'm a big advocate of start with one and build on that. So, yeah. Anyway, there you have it. As always, I encourage you to comment down below. Let me know your thoughts on any of this. I truly do appreciate it, and hope to see you next time.